So again, welcome everyone. We're really excited to have you here today for the Everyone Knows Marketing Sucks, Innovate with a Fractional CMO webinar. I'm really excited to be joined by my friend and colleague, Sumaya Owens. So thanks so much for collaborating with me on this. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Bdenoit. I'm co-founder and lead instructor of the JB Media Institute. And Sumaya and I have both had pretty much 2 decades of pretty involved experience when it comes to marketing. And I think both of us have started to see big shifts. Of course, there's always shifts in the marketing landscape, but wow, the last year or two has been some really deep changes in perspective, in mindset, in technology. And so I was really grateful to have someone with so much marketing skill and knowledge join me today to talk about this subject, because I think going forward, we're going to see some major changes in how we are doing everything related to marketing and communications. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some bigger picture mindset things that I think are really valuable for all of us to be thinking about. And then I'm going to let Sumaya take it away and talk a bit about some really detailed, actionable things that I think are important. But most of all, I think what matters to me is, for a lot of us, marketing has become pretty overwhelming and pretty stressful, and there's a lot going on. And it feels like it's just always taking over the world. Like we're always worrying about content and sales, and it's just kind of taking over our brains in different ways. And my goal really is that we make it fun and we make it something we're excited about. And so that's where I wanted to start today. It's really important to me. So for me, I think the biggest thing to be aware of when it comes to marketing is that we are really shifting from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. And that's not just unique to marketing, right? I also feel like in technology, we're shifting from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. And in business, we're actually shifting from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. So all these things are linked together. And I think it goes beyond just the new technology that we're talking about, right? I think there's actually some core principles around marketing that are really changing, have been changing for a long time, but now we are accelerating that change at a big level. So when I went to the American Marketing Association's website, they had a great definition of marketing. Marketing is the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. Now, I'm not necessarily unhappy with that definition. I think that's a better definition that we probably had 10 years ago, way better than whatever we had probably 20 years ago, right? But I think if we really look at the paradigm shift that we're talking about, my definition that I wrote up myself, thinking about this and pondering it, meditating on it, is that marketing is any steps a person or brand takes to build strong, trustworthy, reciprocal relationships with existing and potential customers, clients, donors, and fans who are engaged, connected, active, and share your values. So I think for me, the big paradigm shift is really understanding that marketing is actually about relationships. And in a world where there's just millions of pieces of content going on all day, every hour, on every channel, and I can buy anything, hire anybody from anywhere in the world at any time, right? That's where the core of the paradigm shift comes from. The landscape is ripe with possibility and potential. It's also incredibly competitive at this point, right? And so I feel like that's why we have to shift into this relationship perspective. And the way that this new paradigm plays out is things that I think have to do with, again, our core principles. So for 25 years, inbound marketing is a big way that we've talked about how to relate to our customers. And I would actually say we've moved on to relevancy marketing. If everything on the planet is inbound to me, how am I filtering that as a consumer, right? I'm filtering it based on relevancy, based on what I care about, whether or not what your brand is saying is something I care about. And I also think we need to go beyond engagement. I think engagement is powerful and important, but really, if we have no loyalty, which is the core of the relationship, the engagement doesn't have as much actual financial or economic power inside of our business or organization, right? So engagement is great, but if all people do is heart, that doesn't mean I'm making any money. It doesn't mean I'm building anything substantial in the nonprofit or in my business itself. So I think those are just examples of how the old paradigm and new paradigm are shifting things. And again, I think these things are mirrored when it comes to technology and business at large. So one of my personal soapboxes that I've been on for a long time, and I feel like is really important for just every industry to start thinking about, is that marketing and communications is everything. And I realize I am a marketer, so I will welcome the idea that maybe I'm full of myself. And I just love marketing. So that's why I can say this. But I truly believe in my heart, in a world where everybody has a phone in their pocket and can tell anybody else they know about the positive or negative impact of what you're doing, that means marketing communications is an essential part of every department of every company. And if you're a small business, you're a sole proprietor, you're a person doing things on your own, you tend to wear all those hats. And I want to encourage you to think that all of those hats have something to do with marketing and communications, right? So to me, human resources, sales, operations, research and training, customer service, leadership, finance, information technology, marketing communications actually touches all of these, in my opinion. This is why I'm a big fan of discussions around internal and external marketing. Because to me, in a world where your own staff can step outside after they get done work and put on their social media that they hate their job or they hate their boss, this is marketing and communications, right? Even if it only goes to their select group of friends, that is still something that is going to impact people's perspective of who we are as a company, who we are as an organization. So I think I'm really wanting people to open up the idea that if you're a small business owner and you have a lot of hats that you wear in your brand, then essentially all these different roles that you play come back to this core. And if you have a larger company, I think it's important to realize that these things really are not separate departments anymore. The thing that links them all is their connection to marketing and communications and how that grows your business. One of the things that I think a lot of folks are struggling with is essentially, oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna go back there, is essentially that the struggle is real when it comes to anyone having enough time to hold this sort of role, right? To step into this space where we actually start thinking about how marketing communications touches everything. It's like if we take that perspective, then who becomes what I like to refer to as the guardian of the brand? Who becomes the person that holds that holistic vision and understands all the different things that we're doing and how they relate back to our marketing and communications, right? And if we think that marketing and communications is about relationships, the key role of that guardian is to nurture and grow and activate the relationships that your marketing is generating, right? So somebody needs to have that responsibility and identify the relationships, whether or not they're healthy, how to maintain and improve the health of those relationships, and how to invest in the relationships from a short and long-term perspective, right? Because there's things we can do to create closeness to our customers and our donors and our clients and our fans that are very short-term related, maybe get them excited about something happening next week or next month or this year. But we also want to be creating marketing strategies that are connecting into the long-term cultivation of those relationships, right? So how can we get those folks to think of us as a partner, as someone we're connected to, and that's working alongside them regularly, right? So I feel like it's become really important, regardless of the size of your organization, that someone takes this role. And I think, and hey, welcome, thanks for joining us. If nobody takes this role, then the marketing communications doesn't end up cohesive. It doesn't end up with this sort of clear, holistic vision that it needs because it is affecting so many different parts of your organization, your business, your brand. And so what needs to change? If we're talking about a paradigm shift, and how marketing is really something different than it's been before, and that it's more about the relationships that we're building and the quality of those relationships. Where do we see change has to happen? And I think it's in 5 places. I think leadership and management. If you're a business owner, a founder, there's some mindsets and things that you have to adjust in order to understand what role marketing actually plays. I think workflows and process have to change. So as technology is changing, as our mindsets are changing, as the market behaviors change, we have to adjust how we're doing things. So I was talking this morning about how I think marketing historically has been about creative work and content generation. And as we get more AI tools, what we're going to find is we might be able to spend less time on that, but where we'll be spending our time is on quality control and making sure that whatever support we're getting from the bots is good support and is building the relationships the way that we need them built and nurturing them and maintaining them. I think internal and external expectations matter. So again, how we view it inside of our businesses is going to have to shift. And I think how the consumers, the customers, the people we're connecting with, our donors, how they perceive things about marketing communications is going to shift. And so I think there's going to be this like change in what we expect out of our experience online and what we expect from companies. I think the platforms and the technology are going to keep changing. And like I said, I think all of this kind of leads us to this mindset and approach that we have to take. So all these 5 things are interrelated, and we're going to see shifts across all of these things. And that's why I like to call this a paradigm shift. It's not just a change in the market or a change in the tech. It's like there's some fundamental things that are shifting here. So change is happening as we do this webinar right now, right? And I think as we're looking towards 2025 and 2026 and what's going to develop, it's really about positioning yourself to embrace this evolution of marketing communications, where it becomes much more integrated into everything that we do. We start to realize that all acts inside of our business are somehow connected to this, fueling it, elevating it, pushing it forward, or potentially hindering it, holding it back, causing issues, right? And it's very important to remember that when it comes to this new paradigm, if we're talking about relationships to our existing and potential customers, right? It's not about what we decide from the marketing side of things or the leadership side of things. It's what we say, what we do, what we decide, and it's also what the customers, the clients, the donors, and people choose as well. And that's the nature of a relationship, right? It's back and forth. And so I just think the way that we've set up our marketing in the past, the way that we perceive it, a lot of times is not facilitating this actual exchange, this relationship that we're talking about. And we really want to bring that into focus as we're moving into the new year. So to me, part of the conversation, like I said, that Sumaya is going to continue, is really about why fractional CMO work and marketing work is important. And that's because really, as we're going through this paradigm shift and these changes, you don't have to try to navigate it alone. It's really important, again, to think about how you're going to bring somebody in to be that guardian, to be that holistic vision keeper, to be the person who can see how marketing communications is touching everything in what you're building. Or if you're going to do it, you have to sort of take that role and embrace it and learn how to execute that role. And at the end of the day, it's around taking action, which is going to, I think, require an investment of time, money, and resources as we grow our businesses. And I also think that we have to sort of look at from an emotional perspective as we go through these changes. We are going to need support and courage and patience and clarity, right? Because I don't see any of the decisions we have to make about marketing getting any less complex in the future. I feel like they're going to get more complex, at least for a while we're all exploring what this new paradigm kind of means to everybody. So I'm going to pass this over to dig a little deeper into this topic to Sumaya. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic.
Thank you, Sarah, for giving us such a great overview of what's happening in our industry so far this year and just sharing all of your perspectives as well. I just appreciate your insights so much and I'm so grateful that you're here today. So I've put together just a few details on the nitty-gritty of kind of how everything that we're talking about is actually showing up in the day-to-day of digital marketing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So thanks again, Sarah, for sharing all of your amazing insight and wisdom. One of the things that you had mentioned that I really want to drive home and just really encourage everyone to think about is that as business owners, which Sarah and I are also business owners, so we understand you are definitely not alone. And there are so many business owners all around the globe who are responding in sharing these concerns with the marketing industry and how it's changing. So in this slide, you can see where I've mentioned SMBs. That's just shorthand for small and medium-sized businesses. So we're seeing that small and medium-sized businesses face a common predicament, the increasing pressure to do more with less. And so as someone who works full-time in marketing, this is definitely something that I am experiencing in marketing departments where the executives that have hired us, they want to see the exact same results or even better results, but often with a lower budget. And that has created a lot of challenges for those of us who are working in the marketing industry to provide those results. And the reason that so many business owners are cutting back on their marketing budgets is because of the concern that people have on the global economy. Also, you can see 73% of small, medium-sized businesses worldwide aren't sure if their current marketing strategy is even working. We'll talk a little bit more about why in the next few slides. And then 44% of small and medium-sized businesses globally intend to spend more time on marketing, and 39% expect they'll need to increase marketing budgets as well. One of the things that I want to mention here is that I have witnessed time and time again, whenever a company's revenue is down or there's a nonprofit marketing department and maybe their donations are down for the year, their sponsors are down for the year, one of the first departments to receive cutbacks is often marketing. But when we're trying to find new customers, find new clients, and to get those sales in the door, it can be really challenging to achieve those sales goals when we're also cutting back on our marketing department. And we're cutting back on the amount of time we spend, we're cutting back on the budgets, we're cutting back on the people that are in these departments. So it's creating a lot of challenges for everyone involved. And so what I wanted to share is that, we're all trying to do our best, and it's such a challenge to be working in this industry, especially as a small business owner, which many of us are. But just kind of keeping that focus on how can we identify the holes in our current strategy and focus on using the tactics or the tools that are the right fit for me and my business or nonprofit in this current moment, which may be really different than what you were doing 5 years ago or even a year ago. And so just being willing to open your mind and heart to new possibilities is really key. One of the concepts that I really wanted to highlight in this presentation today is known as shiny object syndrome in marketing. And you may have heard of what I'm looking at Sarah's face as she's smiling as we're talking about this. You may have heard of things that are trending on Instagram. And just as a fun and silly one, I put Chapel Roan on here, who my Gen Z kiddo is totally obsessed with. And so I have to hear about it pretty much every single day now. But, whenever there's a brand that is following trends, but that's literally the only thing you do is just follow the trends over and over and over again, it can be really difficult to see results because there's not this overarching overarching strategy with these long-term goals. We're just constantly chasing the shiny object. So this little photo is meant to be representation of AI and just kind of like new tools and technology. We're definitely seeing this as well, people kind of chasing the new trends in AI, chasing the new trends in technology, but again, without really taking the time to consider how that's impacting us overall. In the business or nonprofits that we leave. And then this was meant to represent the ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine. Many of you may have seen the watermelon is used as an emoji to represent that as a way to not be flagged by the algorithms. And the reason that I wanted to bring this to our awareness is that as social media managers and marketers, we also see that it can be really challenging for brands to stand out in times of political turmoil and competing more or less with the algorithms, but it also makes it really difficult for brands to understand how much to say or not to say in times of conflict. And so there's all these different reasons that people could be chasing a shiny object in terms of their marketing strategy. And not to say that any of the brands present who are watching or listening today shouldn't be following these things or talking about these things, but just taking a pause to really think about, how is the content I'm creating really meaningful to my brand in the long run. And so one of the things that I am finding is becoming more and more important as we see these challenges arise, is that we need to work smarter, not harder. We need to really look at our marketing budgets and our marketing plans and understand what's working, what's not. And instead of necessarily spending more money or working longer, harder hours, what can we do to make our processes more efficient? What can we do to achieve better results with the limited resources that are available? So one of the challenges that I'm seeing right now in the industry is that marketing tasks are often outsourced to various freelancers or contractors, and there's no unified team. I have been a person in this situation so many times I have lost count in marketing, where I'm perhaps working on social media or the ads, and I've literally never met anyone else that's doing marketing for the entire company. Or maybe we both show up to the same weekly meeting, but we never talk to each other outside of that. And there's no person that is coordinating with all of us to make sure that we're all working together and making sure that our strategies support each other. And this is happening all over the place in so many industries. Again, there's no cohesive strategy. Each team member is flying solo with their own strategy. One of the challenges that I can see in this is, let's say your campaign goal is to gain new email subscribers. And maybe you have a social media manager who isn't even aware of that fact. And if they were aware, maybe they could be scheduling posts with a call to action to sign up for maybe a lead magnet on your website. But that person doesn't even know that this email campaign is happening, right? So that's how we end up in these situations. CEOs or founders are managing the marketing teams directly, but often struggle to solve technical problems. And this is really just because, the platforms are changing so quickly. And even as people in marketing, it's really difficult to keep up. So imagine you're a business owner and you just really don't have time to sit down and learn every single nuanced detail about Meta and Google Analytics and all of these platforms every single day. But then when your marketing team is struggling with these issues, there's no one else on the team to really offer that guidance and support and training that they need. Platforms and trends are changing rapidly, as we have mentioned, and marketing teams are struggling to keep up. So as I mentioned, even for those of us that are working full-time in marketing, whenever I log into Meta and there is yet again a new round of changes, no one is sending me an email from Meta like, hey, heads up, person who works full time in social media. No one is giving me any kind of notification that these platforms are changing. Sarah was really helpful in supporting me through brainstorming an issue earlier this year where I had to change a really significant component of my ad campaign in order for those campaigns to show up correctly in GA4, because what I was doing previously in Universal Analytics, it wasn't working for Google Analytics 4. But of course, no one sent us an email to tell us these things. We just have to log into the platform and figure it out. So even on our end, it's really hard to keep up. Data is unreliable and cost per result is getting more expensive. So I'll talk a little bit more in the next few slides about why this data is so unreliable. But basically, whenever we look at things like cost per result or return on investment or all of these other metrics to determine how successful or not successful a campaign might be, what we need to understand is that this data is skewed significantly for so many reasons. Primarily, we're seeing a huge impact from various privacy and security features and legislation all across the globe that's making it really difficult to track user behavior. And this is a mixed bag because we want to respect people's privacy and security, but it's also making our jobs much harder to provide these results and to provide accurate data. And then the cost per result in any of these campaigns, more often than not, what I am seeing personally is that they are all getting more expensive. So ad campaigns are getting more expensive. We're spending more time on email campaigns. We're investing more money, but we're not getting the results that we used to get maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I just want to reiterate that it's not because your marketing department doesn't know what they're doing. It's because this is the way that the platforms are operating now. Their reach is declining, and this has been happening slowly over the past few years. And then the expectations that, are being held by founders and CEOs and leaders, they're based on previous marketing trends. And so there's this struggle whenever the results of our campaigns are not meeting expectations. So let's say, for example, that you're running a campaign on Facebook ads and your previous cost per result was 50 cents per lead, but now you're seeing your cost per result is $5 per lead, and then you have an executive who is feeling frustrated about, why am I spending all this money? But it's not because anything is wrong with the campaign, it's just now we have a new industry standard of what the costs are, and so there's a really big mindset shift that needs to happen for both the leadership teams of our companies and nonprofits that we're working for, as well as the marketing teams. So it's kind of like everyone involved really needs to shift the expectations overall in terms of the results that we're seeing and the expectations of the results that we're seeing.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Alana made a great comment just about how she's always reanalyzing the cost per acquisition in relationship to the lifetime value and real life experience results of clients when trying to figure out, like, what should the budget be? Like, what can you actually afford? And it's a moving target. And I just want to say, like, you're exactly right. Like, a lot of us are really struggling with that moving target. It's not as easy as saying, here's what the budget needs to be. Sometimes I actually have to experiment and then come back to you and say, this is where the budget needs to be, right? And that's very different than we've done in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you both so much for sharing. So with these next few slides, I just kind of wanted to highlight in these different strategies, what are some of the struggles that we're seeing? So with organic social media, and organic just means any strategy that isn't paid. So just making a simple post on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, any platform that you're using. If you're not investing in an ad campaign, this is still considered what we call organic social media. So we did see a trend over the last few years that we went from prioritizing content in our feed to video content, but now a few of these platforms are backtracking, especially Instagram, and going back to feed, while other platforms such as LinkedIn are just now really featuring video. So again, just to highlight the shiny object syndrome, it can be really challenging to keep up with these trends and figuring out which platform is highlighting, which type of content and when. The algorithms often prioritize engagement. So, if you have a post that is getting more likes and more comments, then it tells the algorithms to show it to more people. But this doesn't always equal results such as leads or conversions. And so a lot of times when I'm running campaigns for business owners, they want to see results. They want to see leads or conversions. And so, I might be creating content that is engaging or maybe is interesting, but it doesn't necessarily, lead to sales. And so that can create barriers as well. Platform users are experiencing more ads and recommended for you content. So people are seeing less and less of the content they actually follow. So even if your ideal clients are following you on social media, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are finding your content in the feed, because their feed may just be full of ads and recommended for you content. Whenever a platform shifts, it doesn't notify users or professionals. One more example of this is hashtags on Instagram. So previously, Instagram had, this trend where people were adding hashtags in the comments. But Instagram actually came out with an article, I want to say maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, that said that they actually don't want you to put the hashtags in the comments anymore. They want you to put it back in the comments. But I didn't know this because Instagram told me. It just so happened that I have, found a blog article about it, right? So all these updates are happening in real time. Zero-click user behavior. We'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about zero-click. But essentially, users are clicking less and less. They are potentially doom scrolling or just scrolling their feed and not clicking on anything. So that means if they're not clicking to your website or they're not clicking on your ads, they're not necessarily buying from you. So even if they do see your post, it's, questionable as to whether or not they'll actually click through to purchasing anything from you. And then quality content provides better long-term results, but teams are cutting costs by utilizing AI content tools. So one of the trends that I'm seeing is people using, ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other tools to generate AI content. But I was watching this video by Rand Fishkin from SparkToro the other day, and he was talking about how he felt like that, business owners should never use AI for their content. And I was like, oh, that's maybe an extreme point of view, but I'm curious to hear why. And what he said was that he had never written a post or he had never read a post written by AI that he felt was engaging enough to share. So he has never felt inspired by an AI post like, oh, this is such an amazing piece of content, I can't wait to share it. Like, that's not what user experience of AI is on the other end. So it's just some feedback to keep in mind. And then with paid digital advertising, so this is like running Facebook ads, Instagram ads, or even ads on LinkedIn or YouTube, any of these platforms, Google ads. One issue that we're seeing is that we're experiencing a higher percentage of bots. both in the comments plus click-through traffic. So another part of the reason why our data is skewed in terms of how many people are clicking through to our website is that number is a little bit skewed by bot traffic. Brands who share political or social content struggle to have ads approved. Fun fact, for whatever reason, apparently Sumaya has a reputation for being able to publish ads that are socially or politically difficult to get approved. I don't know why people seek me out for this, but they have for many years. And I think a big part of it is that I've worked a pretty fair amount with the LGBTQ community and various for-profit and nonprofit campaigns. And so understanding just the struggles that we're facing about, trying to get these types of content to even get approved are a real struggle for so many brands right now. And then, as I had mentioned, we had talked about, the accuracy of the data and that we're seeing in these platforms. Various data and privacy laws in the US and EU, plus iOS Apple updates have impacted user tracking. So when we're looking at paid ad campaigns, we have to just assume that there's a huge amount of EU users and a huge amount of iOS or Apple users that we're simply not tracking in the same way that we used to. Additional platforms such as GA4 have also changed the way they are tracking social behavior. So this is something I had mentioned earlier. A few of the tools and strategies that I was using for tracking social media campaigns in Universal Analytics, in the older version of Google Analytics, I've now had to change the way I'm tracking that behavior. CPR is increasing, that cost per result, and brands are struggling to understand if it's the platforms, their content, or both. So whenever you see that cost per result rising, it can be challenging to understand, is it an issue with the platform, or do I need to shift my content strategy, or do I need to reevaluate both?
Yeah, and I just want to jump in really quick and acknowledge another comment Alana made about how one other thing they're noticing is in the wake of all these points, old school marketing like flyers and signs is actually sort of like coming back and becoming more impactful than it was a while ago. And I just want to say that's absolutely true. I think in the slides that Sumaya is sharing, she mentions a company called Spark Toro, who I love because I'm like a fangirl of their founder, Brand Fishkin. But he talks a lot about how like marketing is going in one particular way, marketing is like going back to the 80s. And I think that has a little bit to do with this relationship push and that paradigm shift. And I also think it's helpful that we have two generations of digital natives now, and we're finding that those digital natives are interested in old school communications. And so it's going to be fun to watch that like develop, because I do think, especially if you're a local business, if you're regional, if you're more community minded and you're operating in some type of community, you're going to see that I think all forms of marketing need to work together holistically, right? I don't think we should throw out anything potentially.
Absolutely. So I'll run through these next couple of slides a little more quickly, just so we make sure and have time for discussion at the end. But in terms of email marketing, the main thing I want to highlight is just to make sure that if you're not focusing on email marketing, to please, find the time and find the budget to invest in at least slowly growing your email list over time, because I have worked with so many business owners whose social media has been hacked or shut down, or their ad account has been banned. And it's so crucial for us to be able to reach our customers, our clients directly, especially if and when anything happens to our social media platforms. So just want to highlight how important it really is to make sure that email marketing stays a part of your strategy. But one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is the lack of API integrations with various platforms is still causing many campaigns to be delivered to spammer promotions folders. So there's a few email marketing platforms that I actually like much better than others because of this specific issue. And I've worked a lot with various brands who were struggling to get that open rate higher in their campaigns. So that's definitely something I'm happy to chat more with you about if you have any questions about it later. And then earlier we were talking about zero-click marketing and just kind of starting this discussion about why are people not clicking on things. And if you go to Google and just for fun, I decided to type in, why does marketing suck? The first two screens that came up, the first one is just an AI overview. And then the second one is called People Also Ask. And there's literally 0 links in here to anyone's website. And that's a huge issue that we're seeing with SEO and website traffic right now is even if your website has great SEO, when someone Googles a question they have, oftentimes they're getting an AI answer and then a people also ask answer. And this can often discourage people from actually scrolling down all the way to the bottom of the page to find what they're actually looking for and clicking through to various websites. So this is something we're seeing across the industry right now because of changes on google.com. And then attribution is, what we call, any kind of activity and, kind of understanding where it comes from. So understanding where people are clicking, where people are navigating through your website, through your social media platforms. And whenever, the folks at Spark Charter are talking about attribution is dying, it especially is relevant in, learning about how people are getting to our website, but it can really apply to any platform whatsoever. But again, highlighting those cookie changes in Apple's products, anti-tracking and privacy laws, ad blockers. One thing that I learned recently was that if you use an ad blocker, not only does it block ads from showing up, but if you actually do click on an ad, like a Facebook ad that pops up in your feed, it will also block the company or organization from tracking those clicks on your behalf. Multi-device journeys. So maybe someone sees you on YouTube, but then they actually go to your website from their iPad. That makes it more difficult to track behavior. Domination of apps, people just using more apps on their phones and mobile devices more so than actually clicking through on desktop. Zero-click consumption. So again, people just kind of doom scrolling, but not clicking anything. And then again, that kind of missing data. So we're seeing a lot of reasons why it's really hard to understand where people are clicking, where they're going on our website, what they're doing. And what this does is it creates a lot of challenges for marketing teams to provide accurate reporting to the stakeholders. So that could be the CEO, the founder, maybe a marketing director, but the people making the budget decisions for the marketing department, it's really hard to communicate between the marketing team and the executive team what's really going on because we don't really have that accuracy in the data to review. So just a couple of quick highlights and then we'll shift to a conversation. So again, mindset shifts are crucial. We can't expect the same results we used to 5 or 10 years ago. We need to invest in professional development and training for our marketing teams. We need to invest in emerging technology to support marketers in achieving these results. And then business and nonprofit leaders need to invest in marketing leaders to help move the needle forward and support the marketing teams. And one thing I wanted to highlight is that one way to reframe the word strategy is an intention. So if you're setting an intention for your business to grow your email list or to, gain more revenue this year. That intention is really powerful. And so by creating a strategy, what you're actually doing is creating an intention, and intention, as many of us know, is a really powerful tool in our lives. And that is the power of having a marketing strategy. And then shifting to a data-inspired strategy. So in the past, we've used terms such as data-driven strategy or data-driven results, but we have to understand that data isn't necessarily accurate. So we can analyze the data, but we need to be prepared to shift gears if it's not reliable. Experiment with using different formulas and metrics. So instead of looking at just ROI or just CPR and some of these other more popular metrics, in the resources slide, I have a really good article about this, but kind of maybe taking some time to shift what numbers you're looking at and how you're evaluating them. Evaluating your organizational values to make sure that they're aligning with your content marketing. Implementing systems of accountability. I feel like I could create a whole course on this, but basically just making sure that there's follow through, and that, you know, people are taking responsibility for the campaigns and projects on their teams across the board, so that projects actually can get done. And then don't underestimate the value of community and building those authentic relationships. And as Sarah said, we are seeing a huge shift towards you know, building that trust, building that loyalty with our ideal clients. And so building these authentic relationships, both in person and on the internet, is super valuable right now. So I won't go through all of these tools individually just for the sake of time, but just wanted to highlight a few articles and tools that I would recommend just researching a little bit further, to just kind of continue to support you in implementing effective marketing strategies, and, you know, taking a further look at you know, how we're calculating these metrics. And I want to open it up for questions in just a minute, but just want to say again, thanks so much to everyone for being here. Sarah and I have both been working as marketing consultants for a number of years, and one of the ways in which I'm really shifting my approach is that previously as a consultant, I would give all of this amazing advice and feedback to a business owner and then walk away from that meeting and have zero idea whether or not those strategies would actually be implemented after I left the conversation. And one of the ways that I'm really changing my approach to the work I do this year is by being more hands-on and being an ally to the executive team and being an advocate to the marketing team, and really offering that critical support on both ends of the equation to just really help everyone understand the situation and achieve those goals with as much ease as possible. So this is just our contact information. Both Sarah and I offer free initial consultations, and you're welcome to reach out at any time to just schedule a conversation with us. And we're also hosting a 4-week online course that will start October 1st. And so we'll include those details in the follow-up as well. But I'll go ahead and pause here and just open it up for questions. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, I did want to add too, in relationship to whether or not you're getting marketing consulting or someone with a fractional perspective, is I think really about solving problems. So again, I think in my history of consulting, I've also spent a lot of time ideating, coming up with all sorts of cool things that we could do. And what I'm finding is a lot of times with different businesses, especially small to medium size, actually, let's identify exactly what the problems are that you need to solve, and let's just get in there and do it, right? Rather than kind of you know, it's about handing that holistic, bigger picture vision off to somebody who can take that vision and then help you actually problem solve. So we did have one question from Alana, and I don't know, Alana, thanks for being here, Chris. I don't know if you saw my clarifying question, but you asked, is there a way to get your business link in the AI results? You see from time to time that there's sort of like a link to a website, and that AI overview is what I think you're referring to. Hey, thanks, Anna. And so with the AI overviews in Google, I do think that right now there's no way to, let's say, get your link in those results. Because I want you to think of the AI overviews the same way that maybe we've thought in the past about the knowledge panel, right? The knowledge panel was pretty competitive. A lot of times you had to have a website with the answer to that question that was showing up in the knowledge panel, where you had already built quite a bit of authority on your website for that. And that's why you were rewarded by being placed in that scenario. So I think it's really goes back to what are kind of the basic SEO best practices. And if we're talking about Google's AI overviews, I think you want to just dig into what those best practices are and how they're evolving. And so there's definitely a few things that I think are really important. I think the top two you could be thinking about is when you want a certain page or some piece of content off that page to rank inside of Google. One thing is how many links point at that page. So I love keyword research. I love the keyword content piece and architecting the site that way. But one of the number one things is going to push you past your competition is when that page where you have the answer that's being asked that might show up in the AI overview, when your page has a lot of other websites saying that your website is the answer to that question, right? And that was true about the knowledge panel. I think that's going to evolve forward to the AI overviews. I also think it's really important with websites nowadays from a Google perspective that you've really invested time, money, resources, or some combination of those things in usability. So really understanding that your website has to be very high performance when it comes to page speed and when it comes to mobile layout. And this is something you can see in your own website tracking. So you can know if, let's say, people are bouncing off the website or if they're not staying for very long. You can even look at individual pages and say, this page, we have a lot of people coming to the page, but then they leave in a matter of seconds. They bounce off the page. They don't look at other pages of the website. So I think right out of the gate, one of the things you can consider is if you have a page with content that you'd like to be showing up in the AI overviews or just in Google overall, that those are two of the key things you could be looking at in how to advance that page and that answer or that content forward. So again, backlinks, links that point at that particular web page, and also making sure that that web page is really, really usable in every situation, right? On every device, on every platform, every browser, and doing that testing sometimes. So even free Google page speed insights can be a really valuable thing to utilize. So I know we just have one more minute. Thanks for the great comments. It's so wonderful to have you all joining us. If there's any other questions, though, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute and let us know, and we're glad to answer them. But I realize we're coming right up to 1 o'clock. So if you need to get back to work, again, we will send out the recording and the slide deck, as well as some information about our upcoming course. And we really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us for lunch today. And thanks for the great questions, Alana. All right, well, Sumaya, thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate the conversation. And
Yeah, thanks so much.
hopefully we will also share with everybody additional conversations on this topic going forward. So have a great rest of your day.
How you do?